Right, good evening and welcome to yet another episode of News Source's Ladies' Night edition. Now, political temperatures are heating up as the country gears up for the next general election. We discuss a lot of that tonight. I'm Julie Masiga.
Indeed, we're also seeing political alliances shifting and coalitions re-strategizing. It's good to see you tonight. I'm Sharon Momanyi. First, the highlights.
The same mouth that said it was working day and night to send Raila to the opposition is telling you it is going to work day and night to ensure Raila goes to State House.
I wish to urge all opposition supporters to discard the fears that Jubilee will steal the August elections. They will not.
Our glorious diversity, our diversities of faiths and colors and creeds, that is not a threat to who we are. It makes us who we are.
Now, following the formal launch of the National Super Alliance, NASA, and the unveiling of the Jubilee Smart Card, the long road to State House has begun. Leaders on both sides of the political divide, addressing their respective party members, made reference to their opponents. Opposition Chief Raila Odinga said that the opposition would not allow the vote to be stolen, while President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto, called attention to what they described as a glowing track record in office. With the cementing of the NASA coalition, and the opposition will now go head-to-head with the Jubilee Party.
Wana Jubilee, let us not be distracted by those who have no agenda for the Republic of Kenya. Let us not be distracted by those who have no direction but power for the sake of power. Let us be focused on the transformation of this country.
I wish to urge all opposition supporters to discard the fears that Jubilee will steal the August elections. They will not. We shall not allow it. We shall make it impossible for anyone to steal the elections. But we are also sending word to Jubilee again that the cost of stealing this election will be regrettable. Therefore, don't try it.
Right. Welcome to the show. Before we start, let me just introduce our guests. Betty Waitherero, friend to the show, political researcher, and of course, Wangari Mwikia. Welcome back, Wangari. I haven't seen you for a while.
Thank you.
MD, Global Expertise Limited, and as always, my lovely show host, Sharon Momanyi. Now, two things stand out for me about this NASA Jubilee battle. On the one hand, we all know a united opposition is a formidable force. And the last time we saw this kind of coming together, I think, was in 2002 when we were trying to move to get beyond the Moi regime. And then now we have Jubilee, on the other hand, which does not have the ICC as a rallying call and has a very lukewarm kind of track record. Many things they need to do in the next sort of 6 months. They need to do thousands of kilometers of roads. They need to compete with the SGR. They need to create 5 million jobs. They need to put the economy into double digits. So some people say otherwise, but in my opinion, this is actually gearing up to be a real battle between the two. Betty, what do you think about all this?
I think it's getting exciting, especially with the entrance of Onyango Law. The crossover of Onyango Law. On his part, I think that his was quite the strategic move. He felt that there was no longer space for him in Jubilee, so it makes sense for him to move over to ODM. In terms of creating 5 billion jobs in the next 6 months, I hope it happens, but I don't see it occurring. The Jubilee track record has been, there have been successes and there have been massive questions being raised, especially concerning corruption. We remember the NYS saga being most prominent. And for those are the sort of things that will hold Jubilee back. There's also the question of why Onyango Law left. Has there been so much of a power struggle within the party that people feel that there's no space for them within Jubilee Party? And those are questions that they need to answer. As for NASA, we still don't know who their presidential candidate is.
I think we can kind of assume who that presidential flag bearer is going to be, Betty.
But you know, Mudavadi looked so hopeful. And, you know, Kalonzo Musyoka even said, I'm willing to sacrifice. So he seems to have had ambitions. So we still don't know.
But doesn't it work for them that they have all this?
They have the element of surprise, right?
Yeah. And all these people on their side, they have the numbers.
To be honest, I don't know if they do have the numbers. I don't know what Onyango Law crossed over from Jubilee to ODM with. We already know that Mudavadi's votes, technically speaking, his voter base would still vote for Raila. So I don't know if that has become something bigger. But because of the voter registration exercise, we will be able to put a proper number to the way things are building up for NASA.
I think for me, I mean, thinking about 2017 and it being an election year, my first thought is to businesses, because now it's going to be a slow year for many businesses. Nobody wants to invest. Everybody wants to see what the outcome of the election is.
And you can already see the dollar against the shilling.
Exactly. So, I mean, already it's kind of a foreboding. I hope it's not really going to be like 2016, but, you know, all election years you see a dip in business activity.
Right.
But by the same token, with the coalition coming in, there still is no leader. There's still really nothing that new. I think Betty and I were talking earlier. What is the real strategy for political parties? Every year there's an election, you do a coalition. And then now a coalition, there's a wrangle for who's going to lead. And then after the election, they divide and there's all the infighting. And it's really just tiring. I mean, we need to come up with a better strategy. It's good. I think it's good for them to come together, but come together with a reason. They should have come together a long time ago.
Right.
They should have said what their manifesto is a long time ago. So I'm really not excited. But the other thing is also they don't have a woman in any of the leadership positions.
On both sides.
Yeah, so I think what have women proven, or what has been in the investment in women over the last years since the last election? I don't think we've really seen any gains in our position generally in terms of the leadership of
That's a very good question. And even in Nairobi, our very own county, where a woman rep hasn't been that visible in terms of activity in parliament or development record.
And she's not even running again.
It's true. We've kind of like seen her, think of her in terms of scandal, perhaps, which is not good for women leadership. But Sharon, speaking about what Raila said at Bomas of Kenya, one of his final statements is that if this election is not free and fair, the price will be regrettable. And that people seem to gloss over that. But what do you think that could have meant?
Right. I mean, that would obviously be a point of, of talk for Raila Odinga, just coming back from what happened back in 2013 and that contest of the presidential election and the query they've been having about the credibility of on these kids and the electoral process. But really the question has been, as Wangari and Betty are saying, what is their coalition all about? That is it a coalition of course, or just a coalition that aims at just unseating
opportunity
the president? And we have to move forward, but I think we'll continue with that in a bit. And former TNA Secretary General Onyango Olo has defected from the party. Olo has accused Jubilee Party of sidelining him when the party folded up in 2013, saying many promises have gone unfulfilled. Olo has since joined the Orange Democratic Movement and today joined ODM party leader Raila Odinga in his tours to mobilize Kenyans to register as voters ahead of the August 8th elections. He was left out in the lineup of the new Jubilee Party launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto in September last year.
Let it be known that I had gone to the National Alliance with the best of intentions, that I had intended to be in Jubilee with the best of intentions, but that along the way they diverted from our course that was agreed upon, and that now it champions naked tribalism, it champions outright corruption, and it seeks to destroy the very fabric that builds this nation.
Kipindi hiki kikwisha, mwezi ujao, nionyeze Uhuru Kenyatta na William Ruto ati tena ni numbers iko na nani. Sawa? Nataka nionyeshe ya kama sisi ndio wengi, sivyo? Na wengi wetu itakuwa kama tutajitokeza na kushika kura, sawa?
Right, so as Secretary General of, the National Alliance, we remember Olo to be a very passionate, and eloquent defender of President Kenyatta, as well as Jubilee Party's, agenda in general. What then does this speak of, this, defection at this moment? What does it speak of in regards to, the state of the Jubilee Party?
I think, Sharon, the visuals of it, I have to admit, I think are really bad.
Right.
Because what Jubilee was trying to sell us was that there's this, there's diversity, there's representation within Jubilee. But if one of the key people who does represent that diversity defects, the visuals and that story of a universal kind of outlook for Kenya starts to unravel. So I think it's a really big hit. I think I talked about strategy earlier. If I'm not quite sure what the strategy of Jubilee is. If they had invested maybe in Onyango Lo a little bit more over the years, I think it would maybe we would have seen some dividends coming from his representation of Jubilee and being the Secretary General.
Right.
But by the same token, this thing of, the promises that were made were not kept. What promises are these? Are we talking about promises? Maybe he was championing a sector and he hasn't seen any things coming of success coming out of those sectors. Then maybe I can get behind that. But if it's about promising of positions, then I'm not quite sure that I'm behind this move. And I don't know what he brought to Jubilee. I don't know what he's taking out of it. I don't know what he's bringing to ODM. So it's just really the only thing I'm concerned about, or that I think Jubilee will be concerned about, is the visuals of his defection.
Right, and of course there's that perceived notion that Raphael Tuju edged him out or at the helm of the Jubilee Party leadership. What do you think, Betty?
I think, okay, and I'm going to give both sides. So this is Jubilee's position. As of the time that they're forming the new party, you have a Secretary General who perhaps maybe they felt had not delivered, and they have now a building acrimonious relationship because he's also saying you haven't delivered on your promises. And then you have Raphael Tuju, who has had experience bringing in votes for himself in Rarieda constituency. So if I was Jubilee leadership, I'd go for Raphael Tuju, who has the votes already, the voter base, and the ability to rally those dissenting Luo votes in Western and Siaya counties. In exchange for, this guy, we can't even work with him. And so, when you're told, and I was telling Gwangara this earlier, when it's time for you to leave, ukifukuzwa waambiwi nenda, this is what happens. Exactly. So this is what happens. They simply just withdraw the support, they withdraw the publicity, the attention that you're supposed to be getting as Secretary General. All of this shifted to Johnson Sakaja. You saw this happen successively over the last 3-4 years. Now, on ODM's part, this is a godsend. This man is angry, and he's bitter, and he's been sidelined, and he's talking all sorts of,
But let's not forget, he's been discrediting them all along. Remember that time he said these are the people who led to the fall of, the sugar industry in Western region, like completely and blatantly, over and over again been discrediting this person, and now they get to be bedfellows.
Yes, because we have the same enemy now. Right. They also, shafted me. So, I feel the pain of being shafted. That's why. So.
Right. Of course, there's also the question of is this shift actually beneficial to him? Does it mean he will be able to unseat the Kisumu East, I believe, MP Ken Obura? Right now, that's a big question also.
Right. Speaking of being shafted, now former Gatanga MP and 2013 presidential candidate Peter Kenneth has joined the fray in a freshly announced bid to run for the governor of Nairobi. After weeks of speculation, Kenneth joins a packed field of Jubilee aspirants, including Mike Sonko, Johnson Sakaja, Margaret Wanjiru, and Dennis Waweru. Kenneth's entry into the race has drawn sharp reactions from some of the other aspirants, most notably Mike Sonko, who has accused the former Gatanga MP of being a foreigner. Meanwhile, Nairobi woman rep Rachel Shebesh has said she will not contest her seat as she appears to take on more of a kingmaker role.
Ndugu yetu kutoka hapa Murang'a aliyekuwa mbunge wa Gatanga, ambaye kuna wakati alifanya kazi mzuri Gatanga CDF, lakini hiyo kazi yote akaiharibu kwa sababu alisponsiwa na wazungu akuje agawanye kura za Central, aangushe ati Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Na akitembea alikuwa anasema Uhuru aende Hague anyongwe afungwe. wafungwe. Juzi ameniita ananiambia, Sonko, ile pesa ya wazungu ambayo bado wako nayo, acha nipatie bilioni 1 niwache wananchi wa Nairobi nimuuzie kiti. Kama hiyo 1 billion ako nayo, akuje hapa nyumbani Murang'a asaidie wananchi wa Murang'a. Sonko ataki pesa.
It's now very clear, and I've made it absolutely clear, that I'm running for the position of governor in Nairobi. But the most important thing now is to ensure every unregistered person in our country registers to be a voter.
Right, speaking about bitter politicians, Sonko, they are making quite unsubstantiated allegations about Peter Kenneth, alleging that he offered him money not to run. Now, this is becoming quite the tussle for Nairobi's seat. In Nairobi, I think we're more or less all foreigners. Most of us have a shag somewhere. So calling him a foreigner is strange, unless they're just saying foreigner to the process as it has been until this point in time.
I think they're alluding to his
mixed race as well, which is a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
But then they actually said they're going to negotiate their candidate, Betty, and remember you talked about this. So what is the problem with somebody else joining the fray? Then you can sit down and decide who's the best candidate.
Okay, so I think you can go back. I don't know if the editor has time for this, but if you can go back to the visual of Peter Kenneth with Rachel Shebesh here, and I think that's Minor Command on the other side. It's very clear what the sort of political structure is forming around Peter Kenneth. It's very clear that he's being endorsed by what I'd call the city fathers or the county fathers from Jubilee's side. And this is one of the reasons why you see that Mike Sonko is very bitter. Mike Sonko has been putting in time in Nairobi. He's been putting in time. If I was him, I'd be so bitter. It's not even funny. But
clearly, he's very bitter,
yes.
Betty. He cannot be more bitter than that.
Yes. so of course he's unhappy about that, because politically, Peter Kenneth has been sitting around for 4 years while Mike Sonko has been fighting Kidero. He's been doing Team Sonko. He's been out there reaching out to his constituents. Right. And this is across the county. He's been supporting Rachel Shebesh. He's been supporting the city fathers. And then, along comes this white boy, sorry. I'm sorry, but that's how he's put it.
You need to apologize and retract, Betty.
I retract that. Okay, so, and half of the things that he's alluding to, you can't even substantiate it. He's talking about Peter Kenneth getting support from foreigners, and I suppose that he's talking about the 2013 election and whoever funded or supported Peter Kenneth during that time. Right. Was he supported by civil society groups? Yes. Was he talking the things that Mike Sonko is accusing him of? That's true. And does he have $1 billion to give away? I really
unlikely.
Doubt it.
It's unlikely.
Yeah, but those are the reasons. Fundamentally, Sonko feels completely abandoned by the power structure, and that they've moved away from him, who, according to him, he was the strongest candidate. Right.
Speaking of that, Wangari, because it seems like City Fathers, it's alluding to 2022 politics, because we want to put this man in the spotlight, perhaps with an idea of succession. Could that be what's going on here? And everybody, like Betty said, had been waiting by the sidelines, waiting to be anointed by the king, and no anointment came.
I mean, I think even by Sonko having this whole discussion about him, I think he's really giving a lot more attention to Peter Kenneth than he should, because if you start talking about another aspirant, that shows you're really scared. So I think it was a bad move on his part to start, talking and trying to discredit him so vehemently in his speech. But I mean, but going back to just looking at Peter Kenneth, the man, I mean, he was quite successful as an MP in Gatanga, I think, for almost 11 years. Right. Won like best constituency in the country. So I mean, it speaks to his good public service track record. Came in fourth in the general elections. Although that's not really saying much, because he only got 0.6% of the votes, which is about 70,000 votes, which even in Nairobi, if you got those 70,000 votes, you would be laughed off the stage. So I think, I mean, he does have a strong public service career, assistant minister, I think, in 3 ministries, and he could bring a lot to the table, but he has to put in a lot more work Sonko has put in the work. Let's agree on that.
But
I mean, he's been
have...
fighting, guys. I mean, this thing of properties being stolen, he's front and center with Team Sonko.
Right.
Then Kenneth comes on stage and everybody's like,
And I'm just wondering whether Jubilee has a strategy with regard to who to front in the Nairobi, seat, because honestly, it's been running around like as a colleague of mine would say, headless chicken. Because first we had Waititu, who clearly went out of the race saying that, Nairobi ina wenyewe. Then we thought we'd see Waiguru here. So then I don't know what that speaks about because we know Nairobi to largely be a CORD stronghold, at least if going by the previous
by the last election.
So then what would it take, to sway the votes, to the opposite, to Jubilee?
To Jubilee. And as Wangari says, in the last election, he got 70,000 votes. Granted, that was on the national scale. Stage. And then now when they speak about this negotiating candidates, it feels like they just want to ram him down the Jubilee side's throats and just ensure that people vote for him for some other reason. So it's bound to be a very tight contest within Jubilee itself, and then, of course, when they come to the CORD candidate.
All right. And maybe at this point, we should take a look at the Twitter poll before we go to the next story, just to remind our viewers what we are asking you tonight. And we asked on that Onyango Olo defection, has Onyango Olo lost his credibility by ditching Jubilee for ODM? Has Onyango Olo lost his credibility by ditching Jubilee for ODM? Do tweet us your views at Sharon_Momanyi, at Julie Masiga, at KTN News, #News Sources, and we shall be sampling your views as we continue with the show. Right, and as the second round of the mass voter registration exercise hits the third day, it continues to be surrounded by a lot of intrigue. In Mombasa, women are being asked to deny their husbands their conjugal rights unless they register as voters. In Murang'a County, eligible voters will not be able to buy their favorite alcoholic drinks until they also register to vote. The question we're asking, are these great moves to encourage Kenyans to exercise this duty? Of course, now we are seeing more than just the political players and more than just the electoral body IEBC conducting this, urging people to register as voters. Do you think these are great moves?
I mean, this thing of denying conjugal rights and what is it? My question to the bar owners and to the women is what is in it for them? If my husband doesn't vote, if he votes, is he going to vote for someone who represents the needs that I have for the public to public service? So what is the point? Why should I just do it for the sake of doing it? It's a real joke, and I think
they want them to actually be a part of the change,
but what change? You have to describe what the change is, and I think really it's the politicians just speaking to the baser instinct of people instead of having an intelligent conversation with voters on the facts and figures of why you should vote for X, Y, Z. Why, if you're going to deny someone conjugal rights, this is because you need X, Y, Z coming up in the next election, and this is what I represent, and this is why you should vote for me. And I think they should follow it up with that kind of logic. But this kind of fun and games with just saying things to get you on the news so that we can laugh.
Maybe they do. Once you are being denied such rights, and then you really want to enjoy them. Maybe
but will they really deny them the rights just because?
Forward.
Why? What's the incentive? What's the incentive?
Like in Kisumu, we also saw the Boda Association also saying they would not be ferrying the passengers until they register as voters. You don't think there's a bigger role being played here, people actually appreciating and carrying on this campaign for civic rights to be exercised?
Okay, but you see, we encourage you to exercise your rights. We don't force you. And what is happening, and we had this conversation online as well among Kenyans on Twitter, that people feel coerced. And it is a form of coercion to tell people that, you know what, I won't even give you communion, I won't even allow you to purchase services from my establishment, from my border. I won't even sleep with you if you're my husband and you haven't taken the voter's card. And Wangari is absolutely right. How does it benefit you as a wife to deny your husband? Why are you bringing politics into your house?
Maybe you have a headache, long-running headache.
I mean, when this exercise
who really is going to do that?
I mean, sometimes it calls for radical actions to see radical
things. I agree 100%.
We had 9 million ID card holders who have not registered as voters.
Now imagine if their wives were denying them
Maybe we need
sex.
Radical.
Really? But it's not only men who need to vote. Also women need to vote.
I
So
think,
what are the conjugal
what I
rights
think is this. I actually think that voting, getting a voter's card and voting is a responsibility. I wish it was compulsory in this country.
Right.
So by all means, ladies, deny your husband's conjugal rights, whatever it is you have to do, or the husbands, the wives, because I think everybody must make that step to go and register and go and vote. And we live in a country where you can't just suggest. You have to give people incentive. And I think these are good incentives.
Yeah, and I think that being said, Julie, we're really behind with voter registration.
Right.
Yes. I think only 63% of people eligible to vote are actually registered.
Yes.
Right. I think if I remember the figures correctly, there are about 25 million people who are eligible to vote, but only 16 million are registered.
Yes.
Right.
So they have to get 9 million, like what you said, but IBC is targeting a more realistic figure, I think, for them about 6 million. Yeah. But they have a lot of work to do, and they have a short time to do it in. I mean,
and the provisional figures, Wangari, as of now, since they started this second round of voter registration, was like 2,000 voters are registering per county per day, which would mean that's about 94,000 every day. And they want their target, if they want to reach the 6 million, is to register about 200 million every day. So they're really far behind. So this radical moves.
The last, I know the buzzer went off, but the last thing I'll say about this is that Kenyans always want to be forced to do things, okay?
Exactly.
Because this is, you see, you had 4 years, you could have walked into any Huduma center and registered during those 4 years. Now you even have to be told to pick up your ID cards. I don't know how you're functioning, but yeah, I guess, maybe your wife should deny you something.
All right. And before we go on a short break, let's just remind our viewers of that Twitter poll. And we asked you, let me just take that. Has Onyango Olo lost his credibility by ditching Jubilee for ODM? I'll just sample a few of your views before we go on break. And Peter Mutua says, no, he has just come back to the right track. Pharaoh Odhiambo says, credibility, he's never had any. If anything, he has switched allegiance to go and get it. We have Abdul Barje, who says, no, he hasn't. Politics in Kenya is quote-unquote local. Shebesh, Karaoke, Margaret and Maura, all are back home. Maybe one last one. And Peter Blessed says that that's hypocrisy. He was in Jubilee due to his personal gains, but now he's yapping of new ideologies. Keep your comments coming, and we shall be viewing them as we continue with this show. But right now, we want to go on a short break here on News Sources. Don't go too far. More discussions when we return.